I'm pretty excited about having our guest this morning, but a big thank you. None of this would happen. Special thanks to, we got some partners, Equpment Hire, Platinum Talent Management, National Make Good Solutions. So without them, we wouldn't be able to run the platform. Also, big thanks to Adam for helping organise our very special guest this morning. And we have got a very special guest this morning, Jemima Montag. I mean, she enhanced her reputation as a big-time performer, led for a lot of the way at the Olympics in Tokyo. It was brutally hot conditions, which I know she can tell us about, but everyone a big warm welcome. And I did say before you guys come on here, isn't it great to see those green and gold colours? Big welcome, Jemima. How are you going?
Hi, thanks for having me, everyone. This is so cool. I haven't spoken to a Zoom walking group ever. So this is the coolest concept, and I'm excited to share. So I will dive right into it, given that we don't have tons of time. I do have some slides with photos to sort of enhance what I'm talking about, and it might be interesting if you want to glance down and see pictures from the games, but be safe as well. Don't walk into a pole like I probably would if I was looking down. All right, so this is me. I'm 23. I've just been to my first Olympic Games, and I'd like to talk to you about how I got there, my reflections pre, during, and post, and how it all went down. So here's a quick summary of my story. I come from a fairly long line of sporty people. Mum and Dad met on an airplane after having competed at something called the Maccabi Games, big sporting Jewish event. Given my genetics, they figured my sisters and I might be interested in little aths, signed us all up. In that photo on the right-hand side of the screen, I was 8 years old, giving race walking a go for the first time. It was basically process of elimination for me and a bit of natural selection. I went around and tried all of the events. It was very clear I was not going to be a high jumper. I'm 5 foot nothing, couldn't get over the bar at warm-up height. I was dead last in the 100 and the 200 meter sprints, couldn't throw. So when we tried the endurance events, so the 800, the 1500 and the race walking, I was actually not bad. And I think when you're that young, just to be finally not last or even on the podium at something was enough to get me hooked and make me feel really excited to be able to bring a little medal or a ribbon home from the local Little Athletics Open days. Race walking was largely understood at that age. We didn't really have coaches to come down and teach us the technique. But one day, my friend and I were walking around the track, not really understanding how to do it. Her dad yelled out and he said, "Girls, you know, this is actually a race. Like, it's a competition. Maybe see if you can go a bit faster." And I think I was just trying to emulate the technique that I'd seen some of our Australian Olympic walkers do. And we've got a really rich history in Australia. You've probably heard of names like Nathan Deeks, Jared Talent, and Jane Saville. So it just sort of worked for me. But at the same time, through childhood, I was really a generalist. So I had about 10 sports on the go, 3 musical instruments, and I was really trying to keep it fun, keep it about friends. And there was really not much pressure placed on me at all, which I think was one of the takeaways for anyone with sporty kids. Keep it fun while they're young, and then they won't burn out. What happened a bit later on in the journey around year 11 and 12, I really started struggling with self-esteem and confidence, especially on the sporting field. There's a big project I'm working on at the moment for the International Olympic Committee, which is all about changing the environment so that young women and girls in sport feel more included and safe and welcome. There were many barriers, I guess, that young women and girls face that I experienced in those later years of adolescence in high school. Things such as the built environment, change rooms, uniforms can make us feel uncomfortable at that time, but also the socio-cultural environment and sort of what's expected of young women, and what's deemed feminine, what's deemed masculine, especially around the sporting field. So long story short, I didn't feel that I had what it took to pursue sport at the elite level, and I decided to step away about the middle of year 11 and all of year 12, and just focus on study and give myself that grace period whereby if I was able to regain that goal, that self-belief to chase something at the elite level, then I would. But I sort of thought at that age, maybe I'm better off just being a normal human, focusing on year 12. We'll see what happens. At the end of that year, my family was on a trip to Japan. This was 5 years ago. My younger sister was loving it. And she basically said, how about you do us a favor, make that Olympic team in 2020. And then that way the family will have an excuse to come back to Japan and have more sushi and experience this beautiful culture again. And honestly, even when she said that, I still was struggling with confidence and I didn't even take her seriously. But mum was listening in and continued the conversation. And she basically explained from her sporting experience that this opportunity to earn the green and gold uniform, travel the world, make friends, challenge yourself, it's not afforded to everyone. It's a rare opportunity. And she said, there's not going to be any pressure, just like in your childhood, from us to pursue this dream. But if you want to do it, we will support you wholeheartedly, and just consider it and consider grabbing it with both hands. So I think just having mum and sort of my sister believe in me at that time 5 years ago was enough for me to get started. But I had to make a lot of changes in order to make that junior to senior transition. So in order to get to that photo that you can see in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, which was the Commonwealth Games gold medal, that happened just about 15 months after that end of year 12 struggle period where I decided, all right, I'm going to try and pursue this again. What I had to do was make significant changes to my environment and lifestyle. So number one was switching coaches to someone who knew what it would take to coach Olympians. He had been a Commonwealth Games representative himself. He'd coached Jared Talent to multiple gold medals at the Olympic level. But it wasn't smooth sailing. I had to really earn his trust. He sort of didn't want a bar of me. He didn't want to deal with juniors who were immature and unable to train like senior athletes. So for about 8 or 10 months, I had to prove to this coach that I had what it took to train like this. So this is what training looks like for us. It might be really, really tiny on your screen, but you can see how complicated it is. This is what a yearly overview looks like. He color codes it according to what stage we're in, counting back from the competition to pre-competition phases, specific preparation phases, and general preparation phases. And that basically changes what proportion of race walking I'm doing to cross training and strength and other things. There's also rows in there to take into account study commitments, family, social commitments, and anything else that's going on. So he's a really fantastic coach, and you can see why I really wanted to convince him to coach me in that time. This is just a more zoomed in version. You probably still can't see, but still there's color coordinating. The red sessions are the key sessions where we go super hard. The yellow sessions are where we add in heat training, which I'll get into in a minute, was really important for Japan because it was summer and boiling. You can see that the overall kilometers in the week are about 130 to 140 Ks, which is a lot, means I'm eating and sleeping a lot. And there is a full rest day on a Monday.
Jemima, just a quick one.
Yeah.
Did I see the time that you're doing for a walk there for 1,200 meters is 5 minutes?
Yeah, so that's a speed session. You can see down the very bottom, average speed for that session was 4 minutes 15 per kilometer. I race at about 4 minutes 25 per kilometer. So it's not slow. It's faster than I run. So if anyone's thinking it's faster than they run, it probably is.
Yes, it is. Just for everyone out there, I'm just trying to put it into context. So sorry, go on.
No worries. So the lead up to the Tokyo Olympics was an interesting one. I was able to earn the trust of that coach back in 2018. I won a gold medal on the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games, which was a really exciting experience for a first senior team to be at home in Australia, to have an insane crowd going crazy for the little girl in the green and gold, and to win that medal and break the tape, I think was the first moment I actually fixed that younger confidence problem and started to visualize myself as a really world-class athlete. So then leading into this Olympics, obviously a year ago, the games were postponed. The world wasn't ready to host them, and that was completely completely the right decision. It was a heartbreaking one though at the time, because we were all ready. I'd waited 15 years since starting Little Athletics and doing this walking thing to pursue that childhood dream. But and there was a lot for us to grapple with. I mean, it's a bit dark, but you can see the photo on the left-hand side with local people in Japan protesting to please cancel the games. So basically every day in the lead up to these games, since they were postponed, I had to deal with newspaper headlines, podcasts, and even conversations with the general public and family and friends about their opinions on whether the games would, should, and could go ahead. They wanted to know my opinion. They wanted to let me know what they thought would happen. And it was really exhausting, to be honest with you. I was just trying to, stick my head down and continue with training. And I had my own concerns about whether the games would go ahead, especially when we were in and out of lockdowns. Melbourne spent over 100 days in lockdown. That's where I live. Last year, as you probably know, if you're from Melbourne. So we were confined to that 5K radius, 1 hour a day. That made it really challenging to prepare, because normally I would train about 3 hours a day, and certainly not in a 5K radius. So I had to just be creative. A lot of training was done on a treadmill in my basement. And luckily the Victorian Institute of Sport were able to get us some permits from the state government to continue coming to the gym, but we couldn't see the health professionals like the massage therapists and the dietitians and whatever. So it was a challenging lead in, but I really tried to reframe that postponement as an opportunity to explore new things that I otherwise wouldn't have. So often we wouldn't really have time to include things like hill training, and including that, we were driving out to the Dandenongs to walk up the Basin, which is a common hill for cyclists to go up. It's about 10 kilometers of moderate incline, so it's okay to run and walk up. And throwing things into the mix like that really elevated my performance in the end. And I think there's no way I would have come sixth in the world if the games had gone ahead when they were supposed to. So that's sort of what was going through my mind and the challenges pre-games. Now let's get into what the games themselves were like. So you might be able to see a few of the photos on the screen. We'll start with the most important, the food in the bottom right corner. So the dining hall was basically this insanely huge, it's like the size of 5 basketball courts, room. Around the perimeter, you've got a buffet style setup of basically every cuisine you can imagine. And then the seats in the middle for everyone. I tried to try some of the local Japanese food, so that's what you can see on the screen. Okonomiyaki was probably the highlight. If anyone hasn't had that before, it's like a Japanese savory pancake that they make out of cabbage and eggs, and there's just incredible toppings, so highly recommend. The photo just next to that, my selfie with Kipchoge, was a highlight of the games. A lot of what we were doing in the village was meeting our sporting idols, especially if you were on the younger side of things like me. I'm sure everyone knows, but he's the guy who did the breaking 2-hour marathon thing last year. Google him if you don't know him. That was a big moment for me. I saw a spare bus seat next to him after the closing ceremony, grabbed it, asked for a selfie, and then swiftly ran away because I was terrified and I didn't know what to ask. So I went and found another seat, but I got the selfie, so that was good. The photo that you can see next to that in the bottom left-hand corner is of my family and my beautiful doggy sending me a selfie right before my race was set to start. So one aspect of a COVID-safe Olympics is that you can have no crowds, no family and friends. So it was just my coach and my training squad and I that went over. So that meant that my family and I were watching it. Sorry, my family and my dog were watching it from the living room. They've got their green and gold balloons ready to go, their green and gold bucket hats. And yeah, that was something we just had to accept. It made it not as special, I would say. But yeah, now that Paris is only 3 years away, we're just hoping that this world has healed by then and we can get everyone down to Paris. The photo in the top, on top of that, is actually me in the race. So I'll tell you a bit more about the race itself. You can probably see that we all look pretty hot and exhausted. So it was 34 degrees on the start line, 70% humidity, and we knew that that was about as bad as it would get. So we did score the hottest day Sapporo has had ever, basically, at this time of year, unseasonably warm. And just a week later, it was 10 degrees colder. So we were just unlucky, but I was actually really keen for it to be hot because heat is sort of my superpower now. I prepared for those conditions for over a year. The family installed a sauna at home because during the pandemic, I couldn't go and access one elsewhere. I was doing a lot of sessions at the Victorian Institute of Sport's climate chamber, which is basically a hot room with all the heaters cranked up. You can make it the exact heat and humidity that you're expecting on the start line. And we've got a few treadmills in there. So my training partners and I would spend 3 days a week, either doing long walks or heat sessions for an hour in that hot room. The race went for an hour and a half for 20 Ks. So that's 4 minutes 30 per kilometer. There was basically a massive pack. There were 60 people on the start line, which gradually broke into smaller packs. I had a lead pack of about 20 up to halfway. And then my coach on the sidelines were telling me that people were starting to fade in the heat, but I was still feeling awesome. We'd done a number of pre-cooling strategies, which means I was in an ice bath for half an hour before the race even kicked off. While other people were warming up, I was cooling down. I had excellent sports science and physiology input, which I think Australia is way ahead of any other country in terms of that research. So I did a hyperhydration protocol that those dietitians took me through, which meant drinking a bit over a litre of a really concentrated solution, basically made up of salt, Powerade, and glycerol. When you drink a perfect osmolarity sort of drink, it means that your cells take all of that liquid on board and you don't pee any of it out. And that just gives me a buffer zone so that even if I sweat 2 or 3 liters during the 20K event, I'm not getting as dehydrated and likely to faint as my fellow competitors. The other thing we were doing, you can probably not see, but I've got a cooling frozen neck towel around my neck there. Every 1 kilometer when I went past the drinks table where my Australian people were, I was taking that off, getting a fresh cold neck towel, pouring water over my head. And the last thing we were doing in terms of physiology interventions was more of a sensory intervention with menthol flavored gels. So I'm sure you all know when you brush your teeth, sometimes you take a breath in and it feels really cold in your mouth with that peppermint sensation. So someone from Goo Gels has actually developed a menthol flavored gel so that after you take the energy gel and for that next minute or two while you're breathing, your mouth feels really cold and it gives you that sensory perception that you are cold even though you're not. So all of those tricks helped me to feel actually really comfy until about the 15K mark. Then the eventual winner made her move and broke up the pack, and she probably sped up to about 4:10 per kilometer, which is crazy fast. And that was enough to make everyone else pretty tired, and it was just a matter of holding on from there. So I really wanted to be in the top 10. That was my goal. And I was able to come 6th, which was realistically, I think, the best result I could have dreamed of on the day. I'm 23 again, and the winner was 30. People in my event and the marathon tend to peak closer to 30 or even above 30. So I feel like being beaten by some of those older experienced athletes was fine. And I've got time up my sleeve for the next games or even the one after that to aim for that gold medal. So we'll see what I can do. That last photo on the screen just shows you how sweet and excitable and kind the Japanese organizers were. They were fantastic. And just on that theme, I wanted to shed a bit more light on how Japan was able to pull off the impossible and actually host an Olympics during a global pandemic. So in the top left photo, you can see one of the Brazilian soccer players getting her vaccine. So all of the Australian athletes received two shots back in May. And that was really important, firstly, to time it right. When we were finally given the green light to go and get vaccinated, I guess we had to jump the queue, as they say, which a lot of the public again were angry about, but it was necessary to ensure that we didn't that we protected the Australian public and that we didn't come back with anything. And obviously that's why I'm in hotel quarantine for 14 days as well, doing everything we can to protect the Australian public. The photo underneath in the bottom left corner is of the dining hall. So normally in a normal Olympics, that would be an absolute hub of socializing. That is where you spend most of your day eating, meeting other people from other countries, swapping uniforms, swapping pins. But this time around, it was really get in and get out. You can't see, but there's sort of perspex plastic screen separating every single chair so that no saliva or anything would jump between people, and you just wipe down your area pre and post eating. The photo on the top right hand side of the screen is of the Mexican soccer team, and you can see that there's no one in the crowd and it looks a bit odd. And that just meant that it was a bit of anticlimax every time a goal was scored because there was no eruption from the crowd. But again, a sacrifice that we were aware of, and that was just, yeah, it was still worthwhile to be able to compete even without crowds. It did make the opening and closing ceremonies a bit odd because, again, when you walked in, there was no sound. But I'm sure it looked good on TV. And that photo in the bottom right is just showing a table tennis table quickly being wiped down. I think we sanitized our hands 180 times a day, lots of mask wearing, and this is just what it took. I mean, but Japan was still able to pull off an incredibly exciting games. I think everyone in Australia was really glad they went ahead. It seems to have been really uplifting just to have that emotion on the TV for those 2 weeks while everyone's locked down. And I hope people are just as excited for the Paralympics, which starts in just 6 days. Hopefully that can offer the same level of energy back home. So now that it's all over, I've been doing a lot of reflecting in my journal. And I think thinking back over the last 18 months, I guess, since the start of the pandemic, we really didn't know what we were in for at the beginning. We were color coordinating our bookshelves. We were attempting to make sourdough. We were doing lots of Zoom parties with friends, and now we're all definitely into a new stage of that. And I think my reflection of how I approached the postponement of the Olympics the last 18 months and what you can take away from that is not waiting for the light at the end of the tunnel and not thinking that we just have to sleep through this or wait for some sort of outcome, because we're in this for the long haul. I'm about to start a medical degree. I finished a science degree. I'm quite interested in this virus, and I've been doing quite a bit of reading. What I understand, if I can give you any insight, is that this Delta variant is 1,000 times more virulent. It doesn't discriminate against ages. So now people as young as 10 are being impacted and hospitalized. We need to basically wait it out until hopefully the end of the year. They're saying November, when we'll reach that 70% of the population being vaccinated. But vaccination is really all that's going to get us out of this. So I don't want to talk about that any longer, but what I mean is that for the next 3 or 4 months, we're likely to be in and out of lockdowns. And I think it's about, for you guys, finding light inside the tunnel. And how I was able to do that last year was, rather than thinking about the end and the Olympics or the end of lockdown or whatever the end is for you guys at the moment in your minds, it's taking each day as it comes, setting a single challenge for the day. So for me, that would be my 2 training sessions to just master them. But you guys will be able to think of your own challenge for the day, whether it be to do with exercise or work or family or whatever. And then the second key was actually celebrating every day, whatever it is, the tiny little accomplishments, sitting down at dinner, sharing that accomplishment with whoever you're sharing dinner with, and voicing it. Because I think if we wait until this is all over or we reach that mountaintop, we'll be pretty upset and we'll be waiting a long time. So find a challenge for every day. Celebrate even the tiniest wins, like actually going for that walk or doing something awesome at work, or your kids doing something awesome, just to bring a bit of joy to the everyday. And I don't want to lecture you and give you any more advice, but that is sort of what really helped me. And I think, finding light in the tunnel is what we've got to do. I will stop talking, and if there's any questions at all, I'm an open book.
Oh, look, I think there's a lot of questions that'll come out, but I'll ask one, and then I'll I'll throw it open to the floor for two or three. I know that one thing I'm always curious about, Jemima, is it seems like when Australians get together, we're able to do pretty special things. So when you guys were over there in Tokyo, do you find you really thrive off one another? I mean, you really find when Aussies get together, it's either one or two things happen. There's either silly things happen or really special things happen. And it seemed like having that, that Australian mateship type culture where everyone was together and feeding off one another in that environment.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think from what I saw from the athletics team, I mean, given the circumstances, we weren't really allowed to go and watch other sports. But what I saw from the athletics team was incredible. Normally, amongst the Aussies, you've either got a team who are obsessed with their competition and they've got the blinkers on and they don't really pay attention to supporting their teammates, especially because athletics is an individual sport. Or you've got a really excited team who are a bit distracted from their competition and they're really focusing on cheering on everyone else and making posters and whatever. This time around, I don't know if it was because of the postponement and all the time we had to wait and how keen people were when we finally got there, but this team had both. We had the most successful athletics team we've had since Sydney 2000. And I think the reason for that is obvious, given it was a home games. We had 3 Australian records. We had so many personal bests. We had 3 medals. And at the same time as all of that success in the athletics team, we had a beautiful camaraderie. We had people getting down to the track, yelling for Nicola McDermott to get over that high jump bar, making posters for Peter Bowl and Rowan Browning and all of the big exciting performances that you would have seen. And I think you're right, Corey. Amazing things, did happen when the Australians got together. And even within the Australian team building, at the opening ceremony, at the closing ceremony, when it was time to party, there was just that laid back mateship, which really is sort of like, if you had to summarize the Australian sort of persona, that's it. And, people were kicking back in deck chairs. The AOC really decked out the Australian team building to make it feel like home. So there was a performance pantry filled with Wheat Bix and Milo and Vegemite. They had blow-up kangaroos everywhere to make it feel like home. They had an Aussie barista making us proper Melbourne coffee when, Japan doesn't really do coffee. And there was an amazing vibe. So I think that really lifted all spirits.
One last one from me, and then I'll throw it open to the floor. So if anyone's got any questions, and I know you will, intrigued to hear that your journal, how some of the ideas that we always try and give everyone about sort of, thriving through tough times and at any time, but interested to see that you do journal. How helpful has that been for you?
Yeah, it's the most important thing I do, I think, for my, not only from a mental health point of view, but a high performance point of view. And also it enables me to continue improving because I actually reflect and learn from each fork in the road, each challenge, or even each positive performance. I think something I've recently figured out is that we're pretty good at reflecting when things go wrong and we want to quickly learn from our mistakes. And we're sort of taught to do that, but we often don't reflect and extract lessons when things actually go right. So given that I was thrilled with my performance, I've been really trying to, I think I wrote 7 pages, just trying to get all my thoughts down on paper while they're fresh. But how I approach journaling is two different ways. So sometimes I've got one journal where I'm just writing thoughts down, and I find that really good, especially when you can't fall asleep at night and your mind's racing with all the stuff to do and thoughts and worries. Just whipping that open, getting it all down, and then you can actually sleep and reflecting on these highs and lows. But I also started a different type of journal last year, which was really handy. And it's basically, you just sketch out a table at the start of each week. You could totally do this on Microsoft Word if you didn't want to draw it by hand, but it's got 7 columns, one for each day of the week, and then about 10 rows. And you can put whatever you want in the rows, but I found it really helpful to record one thing I was grateful for, one random act of kindness I did, any anxieties or worries on my mind, something I learned every day, because they say you learn something new every day. So I thought, well, let's just see if I do. Hours of sleep, liters of water, stuff like that. And then you end up at the end of the week with this amazing table filled out, and it takes 2 seconds. And I think that was really key for me, because sometimes journaling can be, you don't know where to start. You're like, what do I even write down? If you're imagining sentences and sentences, but having a table where it's literally a tick box thing, or one number in a box, or one, a string of words in a box, to be like, yep, I had 8 hours. Yes, I ticked off my random act of kindness. Here's 3 words about what I'm grateful for, dinner from mum, whatever it is. And being able to read back over months down the track, what was causing you worry or anxiety a few weeks ago, maybe what you were feeling grateful for weeks ago if you're in a bit of a low phase. That was awesome. So yeah, if anyone's in a journaling rut and they're like, how do I write sentences? Make a table, columns for the days of the week, rows for whatever you want to record, like gratitude and random acts of kindness and worries and lessons. Good way to approach it.
And now I could easily keep asking questions all day, but I will throw it open to the floor. So in some sort of order, guys, if there's anyone, I'm sure you're going to have some questions for Jemima.
Hi, Jemima, it's Jeff. That was an amazing talk. There was so much in that. I'll have to listen to the recording over again to catch it all, but thanks for coming on. I've been following your career. I sort of know your father from cricket, and my cousin's son goes out with your sister, so I've been following you. The question I've got is in relation to disqualifications. I understand that, we all remember Jane Saville walking into the stadium. You probably don't, because you were only 2 years old, but when she got disqualified, and walkers get really close to the line, and I believe it's just part of the sport that you get disqualified, that you accept that sometimes you're going to get caught. They've now put in a penalty box, I see, where you, instead of being knocked out of the race, you have to sit in the box for 5 minutes. Can you explain how that works, and how you go so close to the line without actually running?
Yeah, it's one of the hardest parts of our sport. I'm sure if anyone's watched or done a marathon or any endurance sort of run, you can see that in those last few kilometers of something that goes for over an hour, the runner's technique doesn't look very pretty anymore. And sometimes they're hobbling to the finish line, or they're leaning over, or they're taking short strides. The difference between walking and running is that in running, you're not penalized for tiring and fatiguing and not being able to control your technique anymore. Whereas in race walking, you start to get red cards and then you're disqualified. So it's sort of I'm not going to call it unfair. It's an unfortunate aspect of the sport. We need the rules in there to separate it from running. Otherwise, it wouldn't really work. So basically, as Jeff was saying, there's 2 rules to race walking. There's the straight knee rule and the contact with the ground rule. It used to be 3 strikes and you're out from the judges. And now they've introduced a 2-minute penalty zone. So once you get 3 reds, you're just given a 2-minute penalty. You have to stand still on the side of the road with the judge, and then they let you back in and you can keep going. But 1 more strike and you're actually out. This did happen to me a few years ago. I flew all the way to China to do a race, and it was going amazingly. There was 2 kilometers to go, and that was when I was pulled off and had to stop. So it's a bit sad, but it is something we just have to accept. And what it means is that I am working on my technique constantly. So in the lead up to that race, I know that international judges are going to be stricter than Australian judges. So not only was I working on my technique physically, but I was visualizing myself walking as safely by the rules as possible. And I think visualization is another really important way to make mind-body connections. Also lucky that mum's a physio. She's really interested in the biomechanics of it all. And she's quite good at sort of filming me, playing it back in slow motion, and giving me any little hints as to how to walk even safer by the judges and not pick up those red cards. So yes, it's something we accept. Yes, it's annoying. has to be there though, and it's something I just work on a few times a week.
Thanks, Jemima. In 2032, you'll be 34 years old, so I'll be standing by the side of the road cheering you on when you win gold in Brisbane.
Thank you.
We got any other questions? I'm sure. Anyone? Are they on not being able to get themselves off mute? How are we going in the back end there, Megan?
I think Matt might want to ask a question. But two people off mute.
Hi, Jemima, it's Stephen. It's Stephen speaking.
Hello.
Yeah, go, Steve.
G'day. Hi, Jemima. Look, congratulations for a fantastic presentation and a wonderful performance. Mine's not so much a question, but just how do you, well, probably is a bit of a question, but how do you balance the physical demands of your training and also having some fun and some recreation in your life with balancing and maintaining mental health? You seem to be, you know, outstanding at the performance. I'm just wondering how you keep yourself up mentally and balance, you know, with the pressure and the expectation on you on a single performance.
Yeah, that's an excellent question and a really important point. I'm lucky that in terms of hours in the day, my training actually doesn't take up as much time as other sports do. So there's sports like gymnastics and rowing and a whole host of others where they're actually on the water or in the gym, you know, for 7 or 8 hours of the day. I'm lucky that we basically do a important session in the morning for about 2 hours, but it's over by 10 a.m. I've got all day until about 4 or 5 p.m. when I do another shorter session for about 45 minutes in the afternoon. So I do have all day to bounce it out and keep happy. I balance it out by being a normal person and doing a uni degree, trying to be quite social in that setting where I can. Obviously, I can't do some social things late at night to do with alcohol and food that I can't have and things like that. But do try and go to things where I can. And sometimes it just means leaving the social event at 10 so that I can get my 8 or 9 hours of sleep where everyone else will stay out until the early hours of the morning. I think, yeah, core family unit and friends are super important to me. They're sort of the values I've been brought up with. So I spend a lot of time and I have rituals, which I think help. Friday night dinner is a ritual with my family, which is really important. I usually am the one doing the cooking. So I often take Friday afternoon off training, spend all day making something, making a nice dinner for my family and then sitting around the table. And usually when we're allowed to legally, we have either another family join or we each plus one a friend. And that's just a really nice ritual. The cooking is like meditation for me, helps my mental health. And then sitting around the table with family helps me feel happy and normal. And I think, I don't know if you picked up on this, but you actually alluded to something really important at the end of your question, which was how do I sort of deal with the pressure and of performing and stay sort of happy with myself regardless of what happens on the day. And I think that's something I'm really working on. The Australian Olympic team we actually heard from Hugh from the Resilience Project. Not sure if anyone's read his book, but it's fantastic. He was trying to tell us on Zoom the other day that you need to get to the stage where you dissociate your identity from your performance. A lot of athletes think that it's one and the same. And I think a lot of people in general, they think that how they're performing at work, how they're performing on the track, what kind of parent they are is one in hand with who they are. And he's trying to really get us to see that we don't have to perform well to be worthy of love and respect and everything else from our family and friends. And I think that's really, really key. The athletes who are nailing that are the ones who are actually performing better because they don't go in with this crazy level of nerves and anxiety that they've got to prove something to people on that day. And they're just performing out of passion and love for what they do. So I'm really trying to get to the point where I can go into competitions knowing that, yes, there's pressure, And pressure is a privilege. It comes from being well prepared, and having people that care for you and caring about how you go. But ultimately, I'm going to have good days and bad days on the track, and just reminding myself that the people in my support network are they're proud of me regardless for the effort that I put in every day. And I'm sort of worthy and deserving of their love and respect regardless of whatever happens, as long as I've tried. So yeah, figuring that out, that's a new level of sort of self-love and mental health stuff.
We've got time for one more question. I know that a few people might have to go, even though, like I said, I know we could probably go for an hour and a half and really fill up Jemima's day if we wanted to. So has anyone else got any questions before I wrap it up? How we going, Megan, on the back end before?
Yeah, all good. I'll quickly ask one, Jemima. How do you go in terms of sponsorship? I mean, obviously the big name sports, you know, get a lot of the sponsors and the media attention. How do you go in terms of just being able to make a living and train?
Yeah, you're spot on there. It's track and field has no money unless you are competing in the Diamond League, but the race walk and the marathon aren't in the Diamond League, and there's a few other events also that aren't in the Diamond League. So it is really hard for us, because I have reached out to big brands before, but they're basically not interested unless you're in the Diamond League getting TV time and enough of the public looking at their clothing on you. So I was lucky enough to join an elite endurance squad called Team Tempo. They're actually based in Adelaide, but I just do it for Melbourne, and they have an ASIC sponsorship. So I was able to get a great little deal through them, but it's just kit. So that means that I get all of the activewear and runners that I need for the year for free through this Team Tempo squad with ASICs, but it's not sort of a paycheck or anything like that. I think because I have this passion for speaking, I've been able to start reaching out to brands and sort of convince them that even though I do a smaller, not so popular sport and I'm not in the Diamond League, nowadays with social media and our ability to reach audiences, no matter what sport we're in, the sport sort of doesn't discriminate. So I have been able to get similar product for free without a paycheck, if that makes sense, from other little brands. So the sunglasses, if anyone recognized, I was wearing pretty cool sunnies in my race. They are a brand called Goodr, Goodr. They're awesome, and they're happy to send free sunnies, and there's a few other, family-owned little Australian brands like that who I love to promote in return for product. But yes, there's no big Nike deal, and in terms of the funding for athletics in Australia, it's sort of a tiered system. Corey will be able to compare this to AFL in his mind, and if anyone else knows what the deal is with AFL, but it's quite different. If you are the top of the top, so if you're an Olympic gold medalist or a medalist at the world stage, your paycheck from Athletics Australia is $50,000 a year. One rung down from that, if you're what they term podium ready, so you're in the top 8 in the world, they'll give you $30,000 a year. One rung down from that is podium potential, if you're in the top 16 in the world, and that's $12,000 a year. And then underneath that, if you're sort of outside the top 16, but you're a promising junior, there's no money, but they will give you free access to the gym and massage, physio, things like that. So basically, if you are at the top of your game, it's sort of like what an intern, like a first year out of uni sort of job would be paying. And that's enough, to pay a bit of rent and have some pocket money, but we're certainly encouraged to have university degrees on the side and set ourselves up for other careers to set ourselves up in the future.
Thanks, Jemima.
Well, on the back of that, Jemima, and I know that you and I can, we'll have a chat off air, because I reckon there's I think everyone will agree with the way that Jemima speaks and her message. And given that it's actually walking, and surprise, surprise, we're called Walk With Me, I reckon there's a lot that we can actually do, and I know with some of my friends that are in corporate business and stuff like that, I know that we can actually do something. So I'll be more than happy once we get off air, and it'd be great to have an ongoing connection, because I'm sure that everyone will agree that, you know, I mean, with Jemima's message and the way that she goes about it, representing Australia, and to have ambassadors like this, that they need all, you know, I mean, they deserve all of our support because of the way they go about it.
Yeah, thank you. That'd be amazing. I mean, people say that race walking's not relatable, but I disagree wholeheartedly. I think of all of the track and field events, I mean, long jump's not relatable, and throwing a javelin is not relatable either for the general public. But if anything, and some of the big wigs in public health say that, and this is like a direct quote from the WHO, walking is the best public health intervention we've got. So what you guys are doing is awesome. And I think, yeah, would love to chat further about how I can help get more people walking. I think it's great.
No, well, look, on behalf of everyone, how long have we still got in quarantine? How long have you still got to go?
5 days. I think I'm let out of my cell on Tuesday.
Let out of the cell. But look, I know that, look, on behalf of everyone, I think everyone would have been blown away by, you know, I mean, the way that you speak, and to be able to get an insight into the Tokyo Olympics. And I know even I said from the outset this morning, to be able to see those beautiful green and gold colours. It's one thing with football. It's great when you play. Obviously, it's great when you play at the MCG and you get to do that. But I'll tell you what, there'd be nothing better than wearing the green and gold and representing Australia. It'd sort of be nearly like putting a Superman outfit on, I reckon.
Yeah, that's a great comparison.
Yeah. But look, on behalf of everyone, it's been an amazing walk with me. I'll see you all on Friday morning. And again, massive thanks, Jemima, and big thanks to Adam for helping organise it as well. So have a great day, guys.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jemima, Adam.
Thanks, Jemima.
Thanks, Jemima.
Yeah.